Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. This is Franz, Sidney speaking to you in Create with Franz, today with Suzy Cross, all the way from England. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. Delighted to be here.
Nice. We're going to have a great time today because we're going to talk about something really interesting. It's identity work, which is what you do. And you are a business advisor, an artiteer, a mentor, coach, hypnotherapist. You got it all, right? So you've been working as a leader, director in global biotech, and you've been working to help leaders to find out actually what is keeping them stuck. And I have to say, guys, you have to listen to this because that's exactly what led me to hypnosis, because I was an NLP coach. I did a whole year course, I had all these clients. And then I realized, you know what, that's not enough because a lot of people are stuck. They got these strategies and these goals and all sorted out to work, but they can't go forward. They're stuck. They don't really know who they are, where they're going, and why they're not moving forward at all. And I realized I needed to do a lot more inner work and deep work to get them unstuck, to move. And that's why I started to do hypnosis with Marisa Peer and then with Mike Mandel, etc., EFT, because we have so much that is getting us stuck. So we might look at a very rich entrepreneur, is looking successful, it goes 6 figures, 7 figures, and is deeply unhappy. So why do you, Suzy, like to start with inner work? Why don't you go straight into strategy? Let's talk about this inner work stuff. I'm very interested.
Yeah, thank you. I spent a lot of time working on business strategy. And for all the reasons you say, people being stuck, when I started working with entrepreneurs and solopreneurs, I found that strategy is often used as a really nice procrastination tool when you're actually frightened of doing something that you don't want to do. And it might be being visible, it might be communicating in a medium that you're not used to communicating, it might be having a difficult conversation. So you can have all the strategy in the world, and it's really important to have good strategy. But if you haven't done the inner work, then you don't get the kind of momentum that you do when you've done the inner work, which is why I like to do the inner work first now. So generally speaking, and actually when you work one-to-one when I work one-to-one with a client, I generally do both in tandem. We're doing a bit of inner work and we're doing a bit of strategy work, because it's in implementing the strategy that the inner work stuckness shows up, any wobbliness shows up. But yeah, the inner work is so important for getting momentum.
So inner work, that means looking inside ourselves. I do imagine this for men and women, although women tend to be more vocal and clear on what they feel emotionally, and a man might swallow up and not really say what's really going on. So it might take a different approach, I guess. So the problem is, so you told me in our pre-chat, there are 5 big, how would you say, 5 big issues that do show up.
Yeah,
So
yeah, let me talk to you about those. So when you look at what identity is and what holds us back, when we're going to make a decision in business or in anything actually in life, and we think about, do I do this or do I do that? And not knowing, if we second guess ourselves all the time, or if we procrastinate, or if we get to the thing and then we self-sabotage, there's a whole host of things that we do that actually, when you put them all together, it comes down to us having a really strong sense of self, knowing who we are, knowing what we want to do, and knowing when to trust ourselves. So self-trust is a really big part of that. And so I thought, right, let's take all of these pieces that I'm seeing that people are struggling with, that are stopping them from moving at pace in their business, and let's have a look at what the ideal pieces might look like. So one of them is wholeness, and that is where, people might have their fitness dialed in, their business dialed in, their finances dialed in, and they're not doing so well in their relationships. And it's not about everything being an 8 out of 10. It's just about acknowledging and having awareness of the areas of our lives that we're not doing as well. Because when we sort of smother them and cover them and hide them and squash them down, and neglect them, it's that then that we start to feel inside like we're not good enough. And that actually the effort that we put into the things that we're good at, like the finance, the career, the health and fitness, that's just hustle and grind, and it becomes really hard work. And it should actually be really easy. We should be in flow and we should be, enjoying life. And so the first pillar is wholeness. So we look at wholeness and we look at all of the parts of us. The second is about clarity. So where are we a match for, drama, complexity, making things difficult? And we will set that up for ourselves because, creative avoidance is a wonderful way of stopping doing something. So if you're always sharpening pencils and tidying out your sock drawer, then you know that actually you're creating complexity and stuff where actually it should be much simpler. So we look at clarity. And then the third pillar, and there's no hierarchy or order to this, there's just 5 pieces that we look at. The third piece is certainty. And that's where we just know. We have that inner knowing, I call it. We make a decision, we go with the decision, we don't second guess ourselves. If it doesn't work out, we don't beat ourselves up about it, we just do something else. So we learn and we make a move, and we learn and we make a move. So, the shadow side of that is we're always seeking validation, we're people pleasing, we're looking for external measures of success. So, a 6-figure earner or 7-figure earner. Well, if you have 0 money coming in, does that affect your self-worth and your sense of certainty and trust in yourself? So that's the third piece we look at. The fourth piece I call fearlessness, but actually we don't want to be without fear because fear protects us. And you know this as a hypnotherapist. Fear plays an important role. But when it gets out of hand and we're frightened of being judged and we're frightened of failing and we're frightened of all of those other things that crop up, that's where it's not good. And so we work with a fearlessness, with ease, where there might be unease, we look to move to ease, a sense of fortitude and certainty again. And of course, there's overlap in all of these. And then the 5 is like purpose. And the 5th is purpose. And with purpose, it's about, you've done all this other exploring. How is this showing up in your life? How are you ready for anything instead of prepared for everything? And that's like a motto that I like to live by. And one of my mentors from like 15 years ago taught me this. It's like, you want to be ready for anything, not prepared for everything. So we know the person who's revising, got all the notes up until midnight, prepping for a meeting. And there's the other CEO who's just so solid in himself or herself. They just show up and they know that they can just be and be their best self. And they know and trust that what comes is the right thing. And so, that sense of purpose, we catch those remnants. When we've done the other work, we catch the little remnants and the fragments that are still not quite there, and we tweak it. And we make sure that, how we are operating is reflecting in our work, in our community, in our environment, in what we do, in a way that is aligned to us. So they're the 5 main things. And you find that procrastination and fear of failure and self-sabotage and all of those wonderful things all come in to play for all of them.
Yeah. And I'm thankful you mentioned that because I think also in our world, there are some of us who are suffering from this issue. So we procrastinate finding the clients because I need another course. I need to
Yes,
be more qualified.
yes, 100%. And that is so true. And that's why I work with a lot with coaches and therapists,
Mm.
because I think we also, the work's never done, there's always more to do. And it's a bit like the law of diminishing returns. When you buy hi-fi, the more you spend on a set of speakers, the more you have to spend to get incrementally less benefit. But that doesn't mean that it isn't giving you value when you move up the scale. And the same is with personal development. So as a coach or a therapist or a healer or someone who's working with people in a service-based business, we can easily fall into the trap of thinking that we have to be perfect in order to be able to walk the path and help somebody else. But that's just not real life. We're all going to have things going on. And you're absolutely right that, oh, you know, I'll just do another course and then I'll be well equipped to deal with this hypnotherapy. I need this tool. I need this extra qualification. We don't need it.
No.
What we need is practice.
Yeah, so it is good to be always improving, but we need to get those clients or those whatever next step we need in our job to get to the experience in the end, because otherwise we're just going to be eternal students, but never really having
Absolutely.
the real
Absolutely.
experience, right?
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
yeah, so awareness is one of your tips, isn't it? Being
Mm,
aware. What do you mean by aware? And being aware, being honest.
yeah. So the thing with awareness is once you're aware of a problem, if you want to call it a problem, some people don't like the word problem. I don't mind it. But once you're aware of something that you don't like, maybe it's a habit, maybe it's a repetitive thought, maybe it's a pattern, maybe it's a whole area of life, like we talked about earlier. Once you're aware of it, I think that's like 70% of the work, because it's when you're not aware that you just don't know that it's happening. And with identity work, what I found is I was quite lucky as a young child. I was taught by my grandma to not let what anyone else said affect how I felt. You know, I was really young. I remember her installing this in me. So as I grew up, I was really like solid inside. And then as an adult, I suddenly realized that something had happened and I wasn't feeling, I was second guessing myself. I was feeling unconfident. I didn't know what was happening. And it took me a long time before I realized that actually you can work with someone or work for someone who can systematically undo how strong you feel about yourself, if they're good at that. And I was working in an environment where somebody did that to me, and I didn't even notice because um, it's so gradual. You don't notice it at the time. And so some people might grow up and not have a strong sense of self, and so they build it for themselves. And other people might have a really strong sense of self, but find that an environment or a person can erode that. So awareness of that is the biggest part of the work, and then we can get to work with the little bits that how it shows up.
Right. Awareness, being aware is one of the big things. When you're aware, you need therapy. You need to talk to somebody because the problem is just
Mm,
coming back and you make promises. I'm gonna go on that diet, I'm gonna hit the gym tomorrow and for a whole year. Then in February, you see everyone had this proposal, these ideas, and everything fell. We're creatures of
mm,
habit. We keep doing the same stuff and we
yeah.
have a blind spot. And as I repeat in every single episode, I love saying this. I don't know why, but don't we have all this negative committee going on all the time to self-destroy what other people have not even tried? Because we
Mm.
lack the awareness of our potential sometimes, you know? We must be brilliant and we don't realize. So I wanted to know, you gave me before this example about a mentor giving you this advice and everything goes wrong. Can you expand on that? Because I thought that was quite good.
Ah, yes. So when it's a question that um, it's a question that I ask myself, and I get my clients to ask themselves when they're second guessing and wobbling and they're not sure. And I'm sure this has happened to everybody, but I remember once I was a consultant and the person who hired me was not the person who I was reporting to. And so there was this interesting sort of mix. And I remember we were going to a board meeting, And there were 3 pieces of information that I felt they needed to know. And I was told not to give the 3rd piece of information because I didn't want the board to be worried with this 3rd piece of information. And I said to them, this is a fundamental piece of the decision-making process, so I really think they need it. They said, no, they don't need it. We don't think you need to give that piece of information. And in that split second, I didn't give the information because I was told not to. And it was not a good outcome. And in that moment, when I knew I should have done what I knew I should have done, but I didn't do it, that's the worst feeling, or is one of the worst feelings in the world. Because then what do? You know that you knew the right thing to do. And it doesn't have to be a business meeting, it could be anything. But you can't then say, oh, I knew that, but so-and-so told me. That's a terrible outcome. And you and yourself as well know. So quite often when someone's got, let's say, am I going to move to the beach? Am I going to move to the city? You've got a decision and you don't know. An easy way of doing it is to flip a coin, and your immediate response is will tell you the truth. Head sits the beach, tail sits the city. You flip the coin, it's come out the beach, and you think, amazing, I'm going to go and move to the beach. Or you think, oh, I'm not going to be able to get coffee at Frankie's coffee shop if I move to the beach. And so then you know that there's a little something, a reservation, and it isn't a done deal. You don't really know, or you probably do know, and it isn't the beach. So similarly, if someone is wondering how they're going to feel if they take someone else's advice and implement it and it's not their choice, and it were to be criticized, how would you feel in that moment if you did what you didn't think you should do and got criticized for it? And most people will feel bad. And that's a healthy response, by the way, because we don't want to feel like, oh, that's okay, it was somebody else's decision. We want to be able to take responsibility and have that confidence to take responsibility. So yeah, I've had lots of examples where either to keep the peace or to do what I was told because it was easier. That's not, of course, in a work situation, we sometimes have to do that. But we need to be aware of the fact that we're doing it. And if we're in a situation in our lives where we've got 2 choices to make, then we need to be able to find a way to be certain about the choice that we're going to make, or trust our decision making so much that if it's the wrong choice, then that's okay. We've made that choice and we'll do something else.
Absolutely. And the thing is also not to have this analysis paralysis, not to
Yes.
be so focused on being perfect, because let's say it, we're not all perfect. We don't do everything right. So
Yes.
you actually say something about being perfectly imperfect. Would you expand on that?
Yeah. So we're all perfectly imperfect. So this is the thing. When you're doing work that's deep work, that's inner work, and you're exploring the parts of you that you might not be that happy about, like jealousy or anger or fear, all of these things, when you explore them, you have to be kind to yourself. And I know that everyone says that, but you really do have to be kind to yourself, because everyone is imperfect, and that we are perfectly imperfect, everyone is imperfect, and that is how it should be. That's life. So the fact that you're shining a light on something that you want to improve is the work, and requires, congratulate yourself for doing that. And when we look at the wholeness, the point isn't to say, oh, look, I'm an 8 out of 10 over here and I'm only a 2 out of 10 over there, I'm a massive failure. It's to say, right, okay, on the 2 out of 10, what would you like to be? And how do we get you to a 2.5 out of 10? Because that's progress.
That is a massive difference, isn't it? Just perspective, looking to where we are now, where we're going to be,
Yeah.
and maybe not comparing ourselves to where everyone else seems to be, because sometimes we are
Yeah,
slightly overestimating how well the other people are doing.
absolutely. I mean, comparison is like,
Killer.
we do it, and we live in a society where social media is like, it's very difficult to not compare yourself. But comparison is just a killer. And you compare yourself with yourself if you're going to compare yourself with anyone. Like, how far have you come today from where you were 10 years ago? And when you look back 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 2 years ago, notice the things that have changed, that have gone well. And just on that topic of noticing, actually, I found that this is the most valuable tip that I could give to anyone who is doing change work, because people change in different ways. And you would know this. People can change immediately, people can change over time, people can not even notice it until they look back. But the thing is, if we expect change to show up in a particular way, we can be disappointed. And the best thing you can do is, every time you do something, let's say you see someone for a hypnotherapy session, and in the following couple of days, it doesn't feel like your world has completely changed. Notice what has changed, because something will have changed. And it doesn't matter how small it is, that act of noticing, well, actually, I feel a bit lighter, or actually, I wake up a little bit more refreshed. Those things start you thinking about and searching for the things that have changed. Whereas if you look for the things that haven't changed, because you will always find what you look for, then you will find more of that.
Mm.
And so it's just like, it might seem contrived, but that's how the mind works. We have to work with it. So, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
We took many years to build limiting beliefs and negative ideas about whatever. And
Mm,
we won't take one day to completely change our attitude because we are so familiar and we're very
yeah.
ingrained. It takes several months of a brain to rewire everything completely. So it becomes second nature to be more positive, more aware,
Mm,
more adaptive to taking risk maybe and doing something that feels like, oh, this is not me. And the thing is, a lot of times the faulty me is what feels familiar. So, oh, this is not me. People will not like if I do that. Well, who cares about the people? Can you do
yeah.
something for yourself? Right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So that's interesting. So the inner work is going to be the important work that everyone can do
Yes.
before going into strategy and into goal setting and into, oh yeah, I'm gonna hit 3K. You know, sometimes that's a problem. You cannot hit those 3K a month. You cannot do those sales because every time you go and trying to speak to the client, you're back to the 8-year-old child who was in the corner in the room because daddy was coming home and he was gonna hit you if you talked to. So now you're still there in that child. And until you come out and talk to the child and process his view of the world and bring him back to your world and say, as we do in RTT, welcome to my world. You're now an executive. You can do this and that. The child remains there with his fears and is not going to push across despite hundreds of courses and lots of coaching. He's still feeling as he felt that he was not going to be
Mm,
safe if he spoke up. So I think it's always important, even if we think we had an amazing childhood, there is always something there that is blocking us if we have these problems. And it's never something happened yesterday. It's something that's been for a long while telling us, you're not safe, you're going to be hurt, you're going to look ridiculous, you're going to be left alone.
yeah, and even you can have people can have an experience where they have a heightened sense of, like, that heightened emotion, and it kind of gets locked into the nervous system.
Hmm.
So that can also create, I don't want to use the word trauma, that's too big a word, but that can have people feel stuck as well.
Yeah.
So even as adults, we can have people might be in a car accident and they don't think that they walk away and they think they're fine, but
Hmm.
actually something's happened and they need to work with that.
Yes. That was great. So thank you so much, Susie. That was so good to talk about all these aspects that we have to look at
Thank you so
before
much
we.
for me.
Yeah, it's so good. And I hope you guys listening to this episode, you will take notes and maybe you want to go to check up and I'll give you links. Suzy Cross, her websites and everything, because she does a lot of good work here and she has classes and newsletters and offers, free offers, all sorts of stuff. So keep checking to see what's there for you, because this could be the day that you do the next step. You take your step towards freedom, and usually it's freedom from our own mind, from the tangled thoughts. So,
100%.
so let's go with freedom to create the life that we want and we deserve. So click like, share, subscribe. You know what to do, guys. And see you all next week. And thank you for being with us. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye.